While seated at the serene Mount Yama mountain range, Tsuru reflects on her past and realizes why she has always been quiet. Growing up, her parents often came home late, and she didn't have siblings to bond with. Despite this, she never felt lonely. It was the games she played that filled her time and pushed her social limits. As she reminisces, she recalls how, over time, classmates began to invite her to play games with them. Initially hesitant, she found herself enjoying these interactions, and much to her surprise, she often emerged victorious. This newfound camaraderie eventually led her to meet Ajiha and Uda. Whenever they played together, she continued to win, which brought her joy but also made her feel a bit disconnected. After a while, Tsuru grew tired of always being the one to win. Although she initially didn't want to play games with friends, the dynamic changed when she decided to take a break from playing with Ajiha and Uda. They misinterpreted her decision, thinking it was because they were weaker at games or that she found them boring. However, Tsuru experiences a change of heart when she finds someone who truly understands her, Otakogi. He recognizes her love for solo play and encourages her to start gaming with him, which they do frequently. This newfound companionship allows Tsuru to enjoy the social aspect of gaming without feeling pressured to compete, and she begins to feel more connected. Back in the present, Otakogi brings up how it has been a while since they last played games together like they used to. Tsuru reflects on this, initially thinking he might not want to play the lonely games with her again since he had only asked her to join him once. Yet, deep down, she knows that Otakogi is kind-hearted and wouldn't just abandon her. Their conversation continues, and Otakogi expresses his desire to play more games with her. He admits to being pleasantly surprised by how well Tsuru can navigate games in real life, just as she does online. After a while of discussion, Otakogi proposes a new challenge to Tsuru, a 2-man dungeon run that simulates an 8-man raid. Tsuru finds this interesting and feels eager to play, even though it's her first time. She informs Otakogi that she might need some time to get the hang of it. With that, they decide to start playing. It's the beginning of the second semester, and Uda hasn't heard from Otakogi and Tsuru, despite spending the entire vacation with Ajiha, playing games together. As he walks into the school compound this morning to resume classes, he begins meeting some of Ajiha's friends, who greet him warmly. However, he starts feeling nervous and struggles to return their greetings properly, unable to make eye contact. Ajiha sees him from afar, calls out his name excitedly, and rushes towards him with a big smile on her face. She expects a warm welcome in return, but Uda hastily passes by, unable to even greet her properly. Ajiha stops him, revealing that she has been waiting for him. Uda is shocked and filled with regret, realizing he was trying to avoid her. Ajiha has some exciting news to share and shows off her new device that plays Super Famicom games. Uda loves the device, and she suggests they play together since she has many games. As they approach the entrance of their classroom, Uda asks if they're entering together, and Ajiha confirms they are. Suddenly, she grabs Uda's arm to show off to her friends. As they enter the class, everyone's attention is drawn to them, and they all wonder what's going on between the two. Uda quickly clarifies that they're emotionally dating, but emphasizes they're not romantically involved. He asks Ajiha to remove her hand from his arm, but Ajiha disagrees. Their classmates remain skeptical, trying to persuade them to discuss their relationship. However, they both insist they're not dating. Ajiha suggests they move to another location to finish discussing the game, as they're disturbing others. After class, they leave school together, planning to head to the club. Ajiha predicts that Tsuru and Otakogi might be together, possibly flirting with each other, having played an online fantasy game during the vacation. Upon arriving at the club, they find Tsuru about to change clothes. Ajiha is stunned, her mouth agape. Otakogi fabricates a story about having emergency authority on the club activity committee to explain their presence, claiming they're ensuring the club conducts decent activities. Ajiha thinks it would be fun to play together, but Otakogi mentions that it might not work since the game club is a minor club, still in its early stages. Meanwhile, Uda realizes it's been a while since they've all played games together, unaware of the ordeal awaiting him. 2 days later, Uda is the only one who shows up at the clubroom. That's when a first-year student named Hashizora, claiming to be a member of the club activities examination committee, walks in. She declares she's there to crush evil. Hashizora also warns Uda that their organization considers video games, among other electronic activities, potentially harmful. Uda feels confused when Hashizora introduces herself because he recalls that Otakogi told them something very different about the committee. Unsure of her intentions, he asks what she means. Without missing a beat, Hashizora launches into a passionate explanation about the negative effects of video games. Oda stands there, stunned and perplexed, wondering why she's even bringing this up, especially since he thought he was speaking to someone else entirely. Then, Hashizura's tone shifts as she vows to punish every evil organization that promotes or allows video games. Oda can't help but wonder why a person like her would suddenly appear here, of all places, and at this very moment, when he's the only one around. In an attempt to avoid her intense mission, he checks the list of club activities scheduled for the day and tells her that maybe she should come back another time. However, Hashizura remains determined, insisting she must take action now since she's already here. With unwavering resolve, Hashizura begins inspecting every video game she can find, intent on banning each one. She explains that she was forbidden from watching video games as a child, which convinced her they are harmful to everyone. Oda tries to reason with her, explaining that video games aren't necessarily as dangerous as she believes. But Hashizura refuses to listen, only reaffirming that she's more than capable of taking down any evil organizations in her path. With a stern expression, Hashizura decides to leave, warning Oda to clear out all the video games from the club room. But before she can make her exit, Oda quickly pulls her back, determined to show her that she's misunderstood. He suggests she at least give a video game a try, just once. That way, she might see for herself that video games aren't as harmful as she thinks. Oda is confident that if she plays even a little, she'll be hooked and forget about her plan to ban them. After a bit of persuasion, Hashizura finally agrees, but only for 30 minutes. She insists that she'll ban the game afterward, just as she intended. Meanwhile, Oda has a secret goal. He's determined to change her mind about video games and save the club room, especially since he knows that would make Ajiya happy. After sifting through several options, Oda carefully selects a game for her. As soon as it starts, Hashizura looks terrified and immediately wants to stop. But Oda encourages her to keep going, reminding her of her commitment to investigate. Summoning a burst of courage, Hashizura watches the screen intently, determined not to let herself be overwhelmed. Gradually, she begins to engage, silently vowing that she won't let herself lose to a video game again. Oda suggests they play Baikunin 3, a charming exploration game centered around small, adorable animals. When he loads it onto the screen, Hashizura is taken aback, shocked by the realistic 3D graphics, which he initially mistakes for an animation. Oda explains that it's a game, not a cartoon, surprising her even further. As they begin, Oda starts to understand that Hashizura's strong dislike likely stems from the old 2D retro games her grandmother banned when she was a child. Realizing this, he decides that his first task is to overturn her outdated impression of video games. This game, he hopes, will change her perspective. Almost immediately, Hashizura can't help but comment on how cute the game is. Without realizing it, she starts to get pulled in, her interest growing as Oda patiently explains the game's details and mechanics. There are moments where certain scenes make her jump, but with Oda's guidance, she begins to navigate through them, her curiosity replacing her hesitation. Oda sticks by her as a supporter, helping her along the way and teaching her as she plays. With each new discovery, Hashizura's surprise and excitement grow. This game world is nothing like what she had expected. Before long, Hashizura grasps the goal of Baikunin 3. Her task is to pull out the Baikunin creatures so they can gather food. The simplicity of it surprises her, as it's far easier than she initially imagined. As she pulls out the Baikunin, she finds herself enjoying the process more than expected. Understanding that it's all about pressing buttons, she begins to appreciate the small details. The subtle movements on the screen, the cheerful sound effects, and the satisfying motions of the Baikunin as they carry out their tasks. Each button press brings an instant reaction, and every action sends a surge of delight through her. The rhythm of the game, the visuals, and the sounds all seem to send waves of pleasure to her mind, and she feels herself drawn into the experience, realizing that perhaps video games aren't as pointless as she once believed. Meanwhile, Oda observes her closely, feeling satisfied that she's becoming more engaged. He recognizes that Baikunin 3, with its simple, charming gameplay, matches her energy well. Unaware, Hashizura begins developing a growing affection for Oda. Each time she glances his way, she finds herself captivated by his presence, noticing things she hadn't before. The ease in his posture, his quiet patience, and a surprising warmth in his gaze. Trying to push these feelings aside, she resolves to stop playing once she finishes her current round. She tells herself that it's only the excitement of the game affecting her emotions, but a small part of her wonders if there's more to it than that. After a while, Hashizura announces to Oda that she's finished raising the Baikunin, assuming this would be the end of the game. But to her surprise, Uda mentions that they're only moving to the next stage, as an enemy has been sighted. Before she can react, the enemy charges forward, managing to eat one of the Baikunin before she can defend them. Shocked and upset by this sudden loss, Hashizora feels a deep determination grow within her. She becomes more focused and desperate to protect the Baikunin, her protective instincts kicking in as she presses on. Uda, watching her intense focus, feels pleased. She's finally getting invested in the game. As she continues with renewed focus, Hashizora becomes increasingly serious about defeating the enemy, and after an intense effort, she manages to win. The sense of victory is exhilarating, especially when she learns that the defeated enemies' remains serve as nutrients, allowing the Baikunin to grow stronger. Uda suggests they pull out the fallen enemies, explaining that reclaiming the Baikunin that had been eaten is crucial. At first, Hashizora hesitates, feeling unsure about handling the remains, but Uda assures her that it's one of the most satisfying parts of the game. Trusting his advice, Hashizora decides to go along with it. Little by little, she becomes utterly engrossed in the game, unable to stop playing. Hashizora finally finishes the game, feeling proud and excited. Uda then asks if she wants to keep playing a bit more so they can try to defeat the first boss together. Tempted, Hashizora hesitates, realizing that if she keeps playing, she might feel things she doesn't fully understand. To stop herself, she quickly puts down the controller, deciding that it's best to leave. She tells Uda she's done playing and won't continue, then starts heading for the door. Uda is a little surprised that she left so suddenly. Part of him thinks she shouldn't have rushed off, but then he remembers the most important thing, the club's possible disbandment. He tries to call after her to ask what she thinks about keeping the club safe. But before he can get the words out, Hashizora is already out the door, breathing hard as she runs. Outside, she realizes that staying close to Uda while playing games feels strange and intense for her. She decides firmly that even though she enjoyed the game, she won't play any more games in the future, as it feels a bit too risky for her feelings. Uda sits alone in the gaming club room, deep in thought, wondering about the future of the club. He has no idea what will happen, and the uncertainty worries him. Just then, Ajiha walks in, surprised to find Uda alone. She explains that she had gone out with Ryu and some friends to try the new tapioca drink. Since everyone got tired afterward, she got bored and decided to drop by. With a friendly smile, she offers Uda her tapioca drink to try, but he politely declines. As they talk, Ajiha's gaze drifts to the screen. She notices that Uda has been playing Baikunin 3, which catches her interest. She thinks it looks fun and mentions that she missed out on playing the first version of the game. Curious, Ajiha checks out the setup and notices that there are 2 controllers connected to the game. Suddenly, she remembers that the club was supposed to have a visitor, a committee member inspecting the club's activities. Her eyes widen with curiosity, and she quickly asks if that person actually came to the club and if she was the one Uda had been playing Baikunin 3 with. Before Uda can answer, Ajiha's expression changes, a hint of jealousy showing on her face. Uda notices and senses that she might feel left out. To ease her mind, he asks if she'd like to play the game with him now. Ajiha's face lights up, and with a big smile, she happily agrees, excited to spend time with him and join in the game. Uda and Ajiha start playing Baikunin 3 together, and before long, they win the game. Ajiha has a great time, especially enjoying the parts where they have to pull out the Baikunin and fight the boss. She feels a thrill each time their Baikunin numbers drop, making the boss battle exciting and a bit nerve-wracking. Curious, Ajiha asks about the club examiner who came to play the game earlier and why she didn't stay to fight the boss. Uda explains that it was a bit too challenging for the examiner, especially since she had never played a video game before. But when Uda mentions that the examiner was a girl, Ajiha is caught off guard, clearly surprised. Uda then shares what he knows about the examiner, Hashizora, but Ajiha focuses on one question. Was playing with Hashizora actually fun for Uda? She seems especially interested in knowing who he enjoys playing with more, her or Hashizora. The question leaves Uda stunned, but before he can respond, Ajiha suddenly realizes how it sounds and quickly tells him to ignore what she just asked, feeling a bit embarrassed. At that moment, Odakogi enters the room, apologizing for keeping them waiting and explaining why he couldn't arrive earlier. He notices the awkward atmosphere and, unsure of what's going on, pauses. Just then, Tsuru steps in and takes one look at Uda and Ajiha, guessing that the 2 of them might have been playing. Ajiha regrets asking Uda that personal question, feeling embarrassed for letting her curiosity slip. She realizes that even if Uda plays games with other girls, it's not her place to question it. But then, her mind wanders, picturing Uda possibly holding Hashizura's hands to show her how to play. The thought makes her feel a pang of jealousy, though she quickly shakes it off, wondering why she's even thinking about it. Wanting to focus on her own feelings, Uchiha makes a quiet determination to be less dependent on Uda. The next day at school, Uda heads to the game club room and is surprised to find it empty. Although he knows the seniors are busy studying for entrance exams, he expected that Uchiha would already be there. Meanwhile, Uchiha has made a decision to avoid playing games with Uda that day. She feels that she's grown too reliant on him. Even when they aren't together, she finds herself constantly thinking about him. Uchiha receives a text message from Uda asking if she plans to come to the clubroom that day so they can play Earth Defense Force 5 together. As soon as she sees the message, her mindset shifts completely. She really wants to play this game since it's the latest installment in the series. Excitement builds inside her, and she starts heading toward the clubroom, her earlier resolution slipping away. On her way, she tries to remember the determination she made to avoid playing games with Uda that day. But the thought of playing Earth Defense Force 5 is too tempting, and she feels herself being swayed by her desire to join him. While Uchiha does not reply to Uda's message right away, he begins to feel anxious. He wonders why she hasn't responded yet, because he knows she usually replies within seconds. Uda feels a little worried, especially since he bought the game specifically to play with her. As he waits for her response, he thinks about what he will do with the game if she decides not to come. While pondering her decision, Uchiha thinks about who else she could play games with if she chooses not to join Uda. Ryu and the others are busy with their own club activities, and the substitutes are occupied as well. Feeling a bit lost, she decides to seek out Tsuru for advice. When she meets her, Uchiha asks if it would be okay for her to play the game with Uda. Tsuru assures her that it's perfectly fine and even offers to call Uda for her. However, Uchiha lies and says she won't do that, not wanting to appear too eager. Tsuru observes Uchiha's behavior and feels a twinge of envy. She admires how Uchiha manages to involve others in activities she enjoys, making it seem effortless. Tsuru feels like she struggles to take initiative in the same way. Gathering her courage, she honestly expresses her feelings to Uchiha, telling her that she looks up to her and is trying to follow in her footsteps. Tsuru wishes she could be as confident and proactive as Uchiha, hoping to learn from her example. After talking with Tsuru, Uchiha leaves her and heads toward the clubroom. Meanwhile, Uda sits inside, glancing at the door, feeling a bit disappointed as he realizes that Uchiha is not coming. He decides it's time to leave, so he stands up and opens the door. Just as he does, Uchiha suddenly walks in, catching him by surprise. Uda hadn't expected her to show up, and he is taken aback. Uchiha explains that she had originally planned not to come, but after thinking about it, she realizes she can't resist the chance to play games with him. Her excitement is clear as she asks if they can start playing the game now. Uda feels a wave of relief and happiness at her arrival and happily replies that yes, they can begin. As they start playing Earth Defense Force 5, Uda begins to feel nervous. He can hardly wait to see how the game unfolds. Uchiha, noticing his tension, encourages him to hurry up. She suggests that, as beginners, they should pick roles wisely. She decides to choose the Wing Diver class because it can fly and looks beautiful. Uchiha is excited to explore the characters' reactions when they get shot, especially since the game has friendly fire. They remind each other to be careful with their weapons. As they dive into the gameplay, Uda spots a monster on the screen and immediately starts shooting at it from the sky, enjoying the feeling of freedom that comes with flying. Uchiha joins in from the ground, shooting at the monster with enthusiasm. She enjoys every moment of the game, which brings relief and happiness to Uda. He feels glad that Uchiha is having fun, especially because he bought the game after hearing her mention it back at the training camp. When she expressed her desire to play Earth Defense Force, he couldn't resist the urge to buy the latest version, hoping she would love it. Uchiha is taken aback when she hears Uda's explanation about why he bought the game. She feels a wave of guilt wash over her and quickly apologizes to him. Uchiha explains that she had initially planned not to play with him that day, completely unaware that he had purchased the game with her in mind. Uda, surprised by her revelation, asks if he has done something wrong that made her feel this way. Uchiha reassures him that he hasn't done anything bad. However, she admits that she felt a twinge of jealousy because he played games with another girl. Although she understands that he was doing it for the club and there was no other choice, the feeling still bothers her. After a moment, Uchiha reflects on the situation and realizes that she is happy to have the opportunity to play with Uda now. She decides to put her feelings aside and focuses on the game, aiming for both of them to win together. Later, Ajiha comes to a conclusion. Small things like jealousy shouldn't be a cause for worry. She reassures Uda that she is fine with him playing games with other girls if he wants to. Hearing this, Uda feels relieved and tells her that he cannot imagine doing something like that, which makes Ajiha genuinely happy. As they continue their conversation, the door suddenly swings open, and a girl walks in. It is Hashizora, and she immediately confronts Uda, threatening him to take responsibility for what he did to her. Uda is taken aback by her sudden accusations. He feels a rush of panic as he realizes that this might lead Ajiha to misunderstand the situation. This encounter marks the first time that Hashizora and Ajiha meet each other. Hashizora storms into the room and immediately grabs Uda, demanding that he do what he did to her again, insisting that she can't hold on any longer. Ajiha stands there, speechless, as this unexpected drama unfolds before her eyes. Hashizora continues to press Uda, claiming that it is his fault for the situation she finds herself in. Uda, feeling overwhelmed, tries to calm Hashizora down while simultaneously reassuring Ajiha that it's not what she thinks. As he tries to explain, Ajiha suddenly hears Hashizora's name and realizes that this is the girl she had heard about. A wave of anger washes over her as she looks at Hashizora, who is undeniably beautiful. Ajiha feels a surge of jealousy and, in a fit of frustration, takes her anger out on Uda, hitting him lightly. At the same time, Hashizora is still tugging at Uda, trying to get his attention. Uda finds himself in a challenging position, trying to manage the emotions of both girls. To defuse the situation, he quickly switches on the video game, suggesting that they play together. However, Hashizora begins to realize that her grandmother's warnings about video games might have some truth to them. She notices that she is becoming addicted to the games, even though she had sworn never to touch them again. Hashizora recalls how she tried to forget about the game after her first experience, but her body keeps reminding her of the joy she felt while playing. As she expresses these feelings, Ajiha grows more furious and jealous, interpreting Hashizora's words in a different way. Ajiha's mind races, thinking that there is something more behind Hashizora's statements. However, Hashizora quickly clarifies that her frustration during her first game session eventually turned into enjoyment. She explains that a few days ago, she started feeling strange changes in her body, such as the urge to click her pencil repeatedly. This behavior makes her realize that the games are starting to have an effect on her, and she cannot ignore it any longer. Hashizora's admission draws Ajiha's attention, as she begins to see that Hashizora's experience with gaming might be more complicated than she initially thought. As Hashizora explains her feelings in more detail, Ajiha starts to understand what she means by her body getting addicted to gaming. Ajiha nods in agreement and shares her own experience, admitting that pressing buttons can indeed feel good. She describes how, sometimes at night, they dream about games and the excitement they bring. However, Hashizora counters that dreaming about games is not enough to satisfy her desire. She cannot shake off the pleasure she felt when she pulled out the Baikunin in the game. This sensation lingers in her mind, making her crave the experience again. Hashizora expresses a growing urge to replicate that feeling in real life. Ajiha thinks for a moment and realizes that many people who play games often want to translate their virtual experiences into their everyday lives. She tells Hashizora that this desire to pull things out and engage in actions they used to do in games is common. They are not just playing. They are immersing themselves in a world that brings them joy and fulfillment. Ajiha now fully understands how Hashizora feels about gaming because she realizes that she, too, cannot imagine her life without playing games. However, Hashizora has a much tougher situation. She cannot play games at home since her family has banned them. This restriction adds to her embarrassment about becoming a game addict. She feels uncomfortable sharing this part of herself with her friends. Meanwhile, Uda steps in, ready to take responsibility for Hashizora's gaming journey. He asks if it would be okay for him to play the game with her, wanting to help her enjoy gaming again. Ajiha agrees, but feels there might be a deeper meaning behind Uda's offer. He genuinely wants to play games with others and feels a sense of joy when he hears that someone wants to join in. However, Hashizora feels a mix of emotions. While she appreciates Uda's willingness to help, she also feels partially angry with him for causing this gaming addiction in people. She thinks about how much she is drawn to the games, and it frustrates her that she cannot indulge in them freely. Seeing Hashizora's mixed feelings, Ajiha decides to step up. She volunteers to teach Hashizora how to play games, insisting that she is better at it than Uda. She confidently tells Uda to step back, wanting to take the lead. Ajiha decides to check a box in the room where she says she keeps some things for beginners. As she rummages through it, she pulls out a Kensei Dragon Buster DX. Hashizora looks at it and thinks it resembles a toy, but then Ajiha surprises her by revealing a toy sword. She explains that this toy sword is actually the controller for the game. Ajiha goes on to explain how they will connect the sword to the TV. This setup will allow them to play in a classic video game style. As the sword moves, it will control the action on the screen, and together they will use this sensory game mechanic to defeat monsters and restore peace to the world. With enthusiasm, Ajiha hands the sword over to Hashizora. At first, Hashizora hesitates, feeling unsure about taking it, but she eventually accepts the sword. Holding it reminds her of when she used a similar sword as a child, back when she was 4 years old. This nostalgic memory brings back a sense of confidence. Ajiha then guides Hashizora on how to aim at her target, explaining that the opponent will appear on the screen just like a real target. She tells Hashizora to concentrate, and Hashizora follows her instructions. With determination, she raises the sword and strikes as if she is aiming at the target on the screen. To her amazement, she manages to hit the target with ease, realizing she can win just like that. Gradually, Hashizora begins striking down every enemy she encounters in the game. With each successful hit, she feels a rush of excitement and satisfaction, as if she has found the pleasure she was searching for. The thrill of cutting down enemies makes it hard for her to stop playing. She becomes completely absorbed in the game, destroying every bad guy in sight, her focus intensifying as she continues. Ajiha and Uda stand behind her, watching in amazement at her growing enthusiasm. 30 minutes later, Hashizora is sweating profusely, her energy clearly waning. Ajiha, surprised by her intensity, suggests that she take a break. Uda chimes in, warning her that if she keeps going like this, she might exhaust herself completely. Despite their concerns, Hashizora brushes off their advice, feeling determined to keep fighting. In her mind, running away would mean she isn't living up to the hero she wants to be, and she refuses to abandon the village she is protecting in the game. Seeing Hashizora's determination and unbreakable focus, Ajiha and Uda begin to worry, especially as she shows no sign of slowing down. Her intense dedication is almost overwhelming as she battles fiercely, refusing to back down despite her exhaustion. Then, finally, she triumphs, winning the life-or-death battle with a victorious strike. Uda stands in awe, having doubted she could defeat such a difficult challenge. He realizes just how fully Hashizora had immersed herself in the role of a hero, and Ajiha, too, finds herself intrigued by Hashizora's unexpected strength and resolve. As soon as Hashizora fulfills her desire to protect the virtual village, she bolts from the clubroom, avoiding any comments from them. Once she's gone, Ajiha stands lost in thought, reflecting on the eventful day. She remembers how thrilling it was to play the EDF game with Uda earlier, and how the energy only intensified when Hashizora joined them. It was chaotic but still fun. Later, Ajiha apologizes to Uda for her reaction when Hashizora had arrived, admitting that she had completely misjudged Hashizora's personality. She now understands that Hashizora's passion for the game was genuine and even a little admirable. Trying to smooth things over, she asks Uda to forget her previous jealousy and the things she'd said. But Uda surprises her, saying he can't simply forget. Uda recalls Ajiha's earlier words about being upset when he played games with someone else. Despite her apology and her insistence that he let it go, he finds he can't simply erase her words from his mind. He tells her that he can't just reset his memory like in a game, so instead he suggests they act as though nothing happened, even though her words keep echoing in his head. But Uda still feels unsettled, as he realizes he hasn't yet answered the question that has been weighing on him: who he enjoys playing with more, Ajiha or Hashizora. Before he can stop himself, he says out loud, almost involuntarily, that he can't imagine being without Ajiha. The unexpected confession catches Ajiha by surprise. Those words hit her deeply, stirring up emotions she can't suppress. Suddenly, she finds herself crying and laughing at once. As they walked home, chatting comfortably, Ajiha brought up Hashizora again, playfully accusing Uda of being the reason Hashizora had fallen into the world of gaming. Uda couldn't deny it, remembering how much Hashizora had resisted at first, only to become deeply immersed once she gave in. Laughing, Ajiha then teased that she, too, had started feeling more addicted to games, and insisted that Uda should take responsibility for her newfound obsession as well. Uda was taken aback by this, knowing that Ajiha had been a passionate gamer for as long as he'd known her. But Ajiha shook her head, insisting that her connection to games felt different now. She didn't just enjoy them on her own. Playing with Uda had somehow amplified her excitement, and she couldn't imagine playing without him. At school the next day, Ajiha goes straight to Uda's classroom and asks him to head to the clubroom together. But Uda explains that he has a presentation to work on, suggesting that she go ahead and that he'll join her later. Feeling a little disappointed at first, Ajiha thinks it over and then decides to stay with him instead. She sits down in front of him, watching him intently, and says that she'll wait for him so he won't be alone. Uda tries to keep his composure, glancing around as he notices some of his classmates whispering and sneaking curious glances their way, clearly misinterpreting her dedication. Before he can fully convince Ajiha to give him some space, the pressure from his classmates' stares makes him hurry up with his work. Soon enough, he's done, and they head to the video game club together. When they enter the clubroom, they're met with an unexpected sight. Tsuru is sprawled across a chair, looking completely exhausted, almost lifeless. Ajiha and Uda exchange worried looks, wondering what could have happened. Tsuru gets up and sits down on a chair, looking tired. She begins to explain how her day went at the cultural festival play. During practice, she left the group and came to the clubroom because she felt uncomfortable being in a crowd. She struggles with speaking up around people, so she thought it was better to be alone. Ajiha didn't notice anything unusual and assumed Tsuru was enjoying herself. Ajiha even encouraged her to stay and practice, thinking it would be fun for her. However, Tsuru argued with Ajiha, expressing that being there felt hopeless and difficult for her. As they're talking, Otakogi arrives and lets them know he overheard their conversation. He appreciates that everyone is already there and encourages them to gather close to the microphone as they get ready to play the game. It turns out that the game controller is actually a microphone because the game is a theater game. The game, called Ashibedo, lets them act as characters on screen, allowing them to perform scenes and voice lines as if they're in a play. Ajiha is surprised by this feature, as she didn't know about it beforehand. Otakogi, who brought the game to the clubroom, eagerly explains its features to everyone. He mentions that although the game has only one microphone controller, it allows two people to play together, sharing the mic to take turns voicing their characters. With excitement, he turns to Tsuru and asks if she would like to try the game with him. Tsuru considers the offer and, after a brief pause, agrees, but only under one condition. She's willing to play if it's just the two of them. Feeling a bit nervous, she wants to ease into the game without too many eyes on her. Otakogi nods, happy that she's open to playing, and assures her it'll be just the two of them. They settle in and prepare to start. The game assigns roles automatically, and Tsuru's character soon appears on screen. However, as soon as she sees the role she's been given, her expression changes. She doesn't like the role at all and quickly tells Otakogi that she doesn't want to play if this is her character. The role doesn't suit her, and she feels uncomfortable acting it out. Otakogi, not wanting her to miss out on the experience, tries to encourage her. He points out that there are many different roles in the game, so she doesn't have to stick with the one she's been given. He urges her to browse the options and pick a role that she'll enjoy more. Tsuru, feeling reassured, scrolls through the list of available roles. After a few moments of consideration, she finds one that seems like a better fit, a doctor. The role appeals to her, as it feels calm and professional, suiting her personality. She selects the doctor role, and her character appears on the screen with a gentle, caring expression. Meanwhile, Ajiha, watching their preparations, decides she'd like to join in as well. She chooses the role of a cheerful town girl. As they start playing, Ajiha quickly realizes that the game is much more engaging than she expected. The interactive scenes and voice acting elements make it feel immersive and exciting. She finds herself getting drawn in, thinking she might even become addicted to it. Otakogi, watching Ajiha's enthusiasm, hopes that Tsuru will warm up to the game as well. He can tell that if she gets comfortable, she might enjoy it just as much. Later that night, Ajiha and her friend Uda decide to go to a cozy bar to unwind. Ajiha, still caught up in the thrill of the game, practices some of her lines aloud, as if she's back in the world of Ashibedo. Uda joins in, playfully practicing his own character's lines from the game, pretending to be fully immersed in his role. As they keep going, Uda begins to feel as if the game is blending into reality. The experience feels so real that he can almost imagine himself as his character. In a playful mood, Ajiha suddenly turns to Uda and, still partly in character, asks him to take her home. Uda is caught off guard by her request, blinking in surprise. On Sunday, Ajiha spots Uda near the electronics store in front of the station and hurries over to greet him. Uda looks surprised to see her, especially since they're both dressed in plain shirts, a simple style they haven't worn in a while. Ajiha cheerfully explains that the subs, her friends who usually join her for gaming, insisted on tagging along, but in the end, she decided she'd rather spend the day with Uda. She tells him with a light-hearted smile that she's counting on him to look after her for the day, hoping he won't mind. Uda, a little flustered and unsure how to respond, stands speechless for a moment. After collecting his thoughts, he asks her if their only plan for the day is to get her a new game console. He jokes that he's not even sure if he's really needed, making it clear he doesn't quite understand why she'd want him there. As they browse the store, Uda casually asks if Ajiha has never bought a game console herself before. He mentions that he knows she has a Game Boy and a PlayStation, and he's curious about her experience with gaming consoles. Ajiha, amused, fires back by asking him what kind of high school girl would be buying game consoles on her own. She goes on to explain that her dad and her gaming friends, the subs, used to play games with her, but lately, they've been less interested. Ajiha gazes around the electronics store, slightly overwhelmed by the variety of game consoles on display. She admits to Uda that while she knows there are many games and models out there, she's generally happy with just the basics. However, she adds that the newer consoles seem so complicated, and she's noticed that even the same model often has multiple versions, which can be confusing. Uda, trying to reassure her, says he doesn't think there's much difference between the various Switch versions. But Ajiha doesn't seem convinced. Her expression makes it clear she thinks otherwise. To make her point, she reaches in her bag and pulls out a strange, unfamiliar console she bought by mistake. Uda takes one look at it and immediately realizes she's been duped. It's a fake. He's genuinely surprised, and they both share a laugh about her accidental purchase. After that, they begin searching together for a genuine Switch, carefully checking each model on the shelves. Uda helps her spot the real consoles, guiding her as they go over the features and packaging to make sure it's authentic. Finally, they find an actual Switch, and Ajiha lights up with happiness. She thanks Uda warmly, appreciating his help in finding the right one. She feels confident that, with this experience, she'll be able to buy one on her own in the future. Ajiha heads over to the register, ready to pay for her new Switch. Uda waits, expecting her to return quickly, but after a few minutes, she comes back looking disappointed. She tells him that she didn't have enough money for everything. Confused, Uda mentions that she seemed to have brought enough. Ajiha explains that the cashier had recommended a few accessories to go with the Switch, and she was tempted to check them out. She now holds 2 baskets filled with extras. One has a table tennis grip attachment, and the other has a microphone for karaoke. She adds that if she signed up for a Wi-Fi contract, she could even get 2 free games, which made everything seem even more tempting. Seeing the pile of extras, Uda finally begins to understand why her friends, the subs, might worry about her impulsive buying. Determined to help her stick to the essentials, he suggests they keep things simple. He picks out a carrying case and a screen protector, 2 accessories he thinks will be most useful, and tells her to return the rest. Ajiha brightens up at the idea, grateful for Uda's practical approach. They head back to the register, and with Uda's advice, she's able to buy the Switch and the necessary items without going over budget. Once they leave the store, Uda helps Ajiha set up her new Switch, even offering to transfer her user profile from his Switch to hers. While they're working on it, Uda laughs and asks if she bought the Switch just to avoid borrowing his anymore. Ajiha chuckles and replies that it wasn't the reason at all. In fact, she didn't mind borrowing his at all, and now wonders why she felt the need to get her own in the first place. As they walk away from the store, Ajiha suddenly remembers a conversation she had back in the video game clubroom. She recalls asking Tsuru if she plays online games with Otakogi every night. Tsuru had responded that she logs in around 9 p.m. each evening, as she finds comfort in listening to Otakogi's voice during their late-night gaming sessions. Inspired by Tsuru's routine, Ajiha turns to Uda with a playful smile and says she wants to have a late-night date with him too, just like Tsuru and Otakogi. She asks if he'd be free that night for some online gaming. Uda, pleasantly surprised by her request, immediately agrees, saying he'd be happy to join her. All day, Uda can't stop thinking about his upcoming online date with Ajiha. Even though they're just playing games and won't actually be meeting in person, he knows Ajiha sees this as something special, and that thought makes him a little nervous. He knows it's going to be a different experience than usual. As he's lost in thought, his phone suddenly lights up with an incoming video call from Ajiha. Surprised, he hesitates for a moment before answering, not expecting their game night to start with a video chat. When he picks up, Ajiha greets him cheerfully, but she mentions that she's having trouble seeing him clearly on her screen. Oda quickly adjusts his phone and admits he didn't expect her to call on video, thinking they'd just use regular voice chat since they couldn't actually see each other's game screens. Ajiha insists that they keep the video call on. It makes the night feel more like a real date to her. Seeing her enthusiasm, Oda smiles and agrees. She lights up, clearly excited, and he notices that she's wearing pajamas. Ajiha happily points out that he's in pajamas too, which he thinks is cute. Oda, however, feels a bit self-conscious about being in his sleepwear on a call with a female classmate. He finds it a little strange, but is also touched that Ajiha wanted to match outfits to make the night feel more special. On the other end, Ajiha's heart races as she watches Uda on her screen, feeling unexpectedly shy. It's been a while since Uda's even worn pajamas, but he couldn't turn down her request, even if it was a bit unusual. Ajiha's quirky ideas sometimes surprise him. As the video call continues, Ajiha eagerly asks Uda what games they can play online together. Uda, excited to share this experience with her, tells her he is going to send her a friend request and an invitation to play. He suggests they try out some Famicom and Super Famicom games, which he knows she might enjoy. Ajiha's eyes light up at the mention of these classic games, and she enthusiastically replies that she would love to play. Once Uda sends the invite, Ajiha quickly searches through the selection of Famicom games. As she scrolls through the titles, she is amazed to see so many options available. Her excitement builds as she asks if all these games are free to play. However, when she discovers that the games are actually tied to the cost of a Nintendo Switch, her jaw drops in surprise. "I didn't even know that was profitable," she exclaims, feeling a mixture of wonder and disbelief. Ajiha is already developing a strong liking for these games, wishing she could play all of them at once. Uda isn't surprised by her enthusiasm. He knows that this is just typical Ajiha, always excited about new experiences. Feeling thrilled to finally play these classic games with someone, Ajiha reflects on how much fun it is to connect with Uda, even from afar. As they start playing together, she remembers that he might be able to see her messy room through the video call. Feeling a bit self-conscious, she asks Uda if he minds the state of her room, which she hasn't had a chance to tidy up. Uda is focused on the game, but suddenly, he hears his mother enter his room. She is surprised to see that the lights are still on and that he is awake so late. Panic sets in, and he quickly tells her a small lie, claiming he just plans to go to sleep soon. He doesn't want her to know he is playing games at this hour. Once she leaves, he turns off his room lights, making sure to keep the atmosphere low-key. Returning to his game, Uda puts on his headphones to muffle the sounds of the gameplay and Ajiha's voice. As Ajiha sees that Uda puts on his headphones, she grabs her own as well, eager to continue their gaming session. They dive back into the game, laughter and excitement filling the virtual space between them. The next day, Uda wakes up late, instantly aware that it is due to the late-night gaming session with Ajiha. Her enthusiasm and persistence to play more games keep them engaged far longer than he intended. He promises himself to be more careful next time, knowing that staying up late can affect his day. Meanwhile, Ajiha is still fast asleep, wrapped in her blankets. Her sisters attempt to wake her, trying to rouse her from her slumber. Even after she finally gets dressed, she remains drowsy, barely registering their calls. She doesn't even realize that it was Uda who kept her up late the night before. When her sisters discover this, they are shocked. Uda and Ajiha stand side by side, their eyes scanning the various games laid out before them. Ajiha playfully declares that Uda will be the challenger, suggesting they can attempt to beat each game as many times as they want. She promises him a reward if he manages to clear even one of them, which leaves Uda feeling flustered yet intrigued by the challenge. As Ajiha reassures him, she notes that the games are notoriously difficult. She points out that Uda has only been playing recent, easier titles and hasn't yet experienced the true challenge of the Famicom. This fires Uda up even more, and he eagerly selects his first game, only to quickly realize just how tough it really is. The moment he starts, the game's punishing difficulty becomes apparent. Uda struggles through various titles, each one more challenging than the last. He soon finds himself staring at the screen, feeling defeated as he mutters that only the game creators must know the secrets to winning, since there isn't a single hint to guide him. His frustration mounts as he moves to another game, only to be eliminated right after he begins. Dumbfounded, he wonders what kind of game this is, feeling a mix of disbelief and annoyance. Meanwhile, Ajiha watches him with amusement, laughter bubbling up as she remarks on his struggles. Hashizora enters the clubroom to check on everyone and see how they are doing. However, she is surprised to find the game Uda is playing, which she claims is unmistakably an electric drug. She rushes over to him, asking him to stop playing the game, but he yells at her for disturbing him. She notices that he is in a state of mental confusion, mumbling to himself as he plays. Hashizora tries to pull him out of his reverie. Meanwhile, Ajiha suggests that Hashizora should play instead, encouraging her to try Spelunker, a game known for starting the main character off weak, where even tripping can mean game over. As expected, Hashizora quickly gets a game over. Ajiha thinks the games are nearly impossible for Uda as well. Soon after, Tsuru arrives and decides to try playing Spelunker 2. She confidently claims that 15 minutes is enough to clear the game, leaving the others shocked that she can play such an impossible game so easily. She then tells them there's no such thing as an impossible game and promises to show them Rodimus Prime, amazing everyone. Hashizora enters the club room, stating that she is here for an examination. The others look at her, and Uda remarks that the club activity examination should be over. Hashizora responds that she is not a club activity examinee, but a temporary member of the Cultural Festival Execution Committee. She explains that she is a messenger tasked with keeping the peace at the cultural festival and protecting the school's healthy cultural activities. Otakogi tells her that they are not planning to do anything for the cultural festival, which surprises Hashizora, along with Ajiha, who insists that it is the cultural festival. Otakogi replies that the video game club is just a club for playing games, so they usually don't participate in the cultural festival anyway. However, Ajiha insists that they can find something to do, even asking Uda for ideas. Uda suggests lining up all the games from the club and letting people play freely, but Hashizora surprisingly disagrees, saying it's not creative enough. She adds that if a club with a lot of activities like theirs does nothing for the cultural festival, they need to show what only they can do. Ajiha agrees, saying they will give it some thought the next day. The next day, Ajiha holds a meeting with the club members to discuss the game Cultural Festival project online. She has thought over Hashizora's advice from the previous day and considered what abilities each club member has. First, she assigns the president to be the engineer because he is good at building things. Then, she turns to Tsuru and asks her to be a live pro gamer to showcase her excellent gaming abilities. However, Tsuru, who is quite shy, claims that she cannot do that in front of people. She asks if they can do a recording instead, but Ajiha and Otakogi tell her that it has to be in public, so that it will be more exciting. After some hesitation, Tsuru eventually agrees to perform live. Next, Ajiho assigns Uda to be the game creator, which shocks him. Ajiho explains that she chose him for this role because he has used RPG Maker before. Uda immediately tries to explain himself, saying that it was back in middle school and that he had only touched it a little bit back then. However, Ajiha does not seem convinced. She insists that she wants to play games that are made by Uda, and he realizes he has no choice but to agree to take on this responsibility. Ajiha then realizes that she does not have any role to play in the project. Seeing this, the club members suggest that she can be the producer. Uda adds that as the producer, she must ensure that the things she wants them to do actually come true. Ajiha feels a mix of emotions as she thinks about this responsibility. She starts to realize that this might be Uda's way of getting revenge on her for something. They gather together to review their plans for the cultural festival. Otakogi suggests that at the end of the festival, they could launch fireworks. He wonders what kind of couples would enjoy watching them together. Hashizora chimes in, saying that it has become a tradition. She explains that legends say couples who watch the fireworks together will be together forever. However, she quickly adds that she has to ban the activity, claiming that having fireworks on school grounds is too dangerous. She insists that she is showing her power of justice by making this decision. After that, Hashizora approves the other activities they proposed, which makes Ajiha very excited. She encourages Uda to do his best as the game creator for the festival. On Saturday, Ajiha decides to visit Uda's house to check out the RPG he is working on. When she arrives, Uda tells her that since she is coming over, he hasn't had time to make it yet, as he was planning to think it over. Ajiha responds that it's not a problem, because she can play something else that he has already created. She starts to check out a game he made before called Eternal Destiny. Uda feels overwhelmed with embarrassment as he watches her play the game. He quickly tells her to stop, explaining that he hasn't finished creating it yet, and that he should be making something new for the cultural festival instead. He starts by creating the database for the game, planning to mix various resources within it to create different events. As he piles everything up, it begins to feel like an actual game. Ajiha wants to give it a try and is surprised to discover that she can create her own character. As she inputs her ideas into the game, she realizes that she is beginning to understand what eternal means in this context. She has so many ideas to include, but struggles to keep up with the pace of the game creation. Oda continues working on the game, promising that he will try his best to finish it to meet Ajiha's expectations. On Monday, in class, Ajiha surprises Oda with a new keyboard controller. He feels excited as he has never seen one in real life, even though he knows they exist. He expresses his gratitude for the gift, and Ajiha tells him that she wants to help him, even just a little bit. She apologizes, explaining that it is a second-hand controller because she doesn't have much money left after buying a Switch. Oda is taken aback by her thoughtfulness, and his motivation increases even more. He even says he can work on the game during class. Ajiha quickly tells him to lower his voice, as other students are staring at them. With only 10 days left until the cultural festival, Oda is filled with worry as he tries to figure out what kind of game he should create. Earlier that day, Tsuru is seen playing a very challenging game while other club members watch. Ajiha asks her why she is avoiding the enemies, to which Tsuru replies that she has figured out their pattern. However, the other members know that it's not as easy as she claims. They are all impressed by her skills. Ajiha remarks that Tsuru's game show will surely be a huge success. Otokogi then chimes in, saying that his original controller will also gain a lot of attention, as he has put a lot of fighting spirit into it. Ajiha expresses her excitement about Oda's original game, but this only adds to Oda's anxiety. He sits in his room, feeling overwhelmed. He wonders how he can make a game that will measure up to Tsuru's incredible skills. He thinks that if he just needs to complete the game, a simple RPG would suffice. To gather inspiration, he checks online for impressive games made with RPG tools, and is amazed to see that someone has created a version of Zelda using the RPG Maker. This makes him think that he should be able to create something amazing that Ajiha would praise. However, the next day he is shocked to see that Otokogi has built an incredible controller that is not just any controller, but a rideable and playable armored core. Ajiha tries it out and is completely blown away by its functions, declaring that everyone will love to try it. As she admires Otokogi's creation, she mentions that now all that is left is Oda's game. This puts even more pressure on Oda, who is now thinking that if his game isn't amazing, it won't be good enough for the festival. Oda is completely afraid that people might not enjoy his game at all. Remembering how Ajiha even bought him a keyboard controller to help with his game creation, he pushes himself to get back to work. Later, he is seen in the clubroom with Ajiha and the others. They realize that he has finished creating the game, and Ajiha decides to play it. Oda feels very nervous as he sits quietly to the side, anxiously watching her. The game turns out to be about their lives, with avatars representing each of them, along with many intriguing events featuring not just the club members, but others as well. As Ajiha plays, her excitement and happiness show through, and Oda can't help but feel emotional. He tells her that he made the game for her, explaining that when he was brainstorming ideas for the cultural festival, he felt unsure of what the right answer was. However, thinking about how Ajiha and others would enjoy it sparked some ideas in him. He feels relieved that she likes the game, knowing that he worked hard to create it throughout the night. Ajiha praises him, telling him he did well. Otokogi chimes in, saying that since Ajiha loves games and enjoys this one, anyone who tries it will likely have fun too. With this encouragement, they all look forward to the cultural festival. At the opening of the cultural festival, Hashizora is surprised by the sight of the armored core. Otokogi proudly tells her that she will understand its appeal once she rides it. Hashizora gives it a try, but she becomes totally scared by the realistic effects of the controller, letting out a scream that attracts the attention of other students nearby. Afterward, Ajiha takes Hashizora to find Tsuru, asking her if she wants to play Mario Maker 2. Ajiha mentions that they can challenge the speedrun stage, which has a clear rate of less than 0.1%. Hashizora argues that such a game is impossible to win, but Ajiha assures her that their pro gamer, Tsuru, can do it. Many students gather around, amazed by Tsuru's impressive gaming skills. Curious, Hashizora then asks what Oda is doing over in a corner. Ajiha explains that he is playtesting his game, checking for bugs before the customers arrive. Hashizora notices how serious he looks and jokes that with his overly serious expression, no customer would dare approach him. Determined to help, she decides to be the first customer, hoping to encourage others to join in. However, Ajiha immediately steps in, suggesting that they should play Oda's game together. They both jump into the game, and soon everyone watching is surprised and intrigued by how engaging it is as the girls navigate through the challenges. Their excitement spreads, drawing more students to see what the fuss is about. As lunchtime approaches, the crowd begins to disperse. Ajiha brings Uda along to get some food for the others in the club. On their way, she suggests they stop to buy some crepes. They head to the stall where the crepes are being made, but the ladies working there mistakenly think that Uda and Ajiha are on a date. They quickly clarify that they are just buying food for the game club. After they buy the crepes, Uda shyly gathers the courage to ask Ajiha if she would like to walk around the cultural festival together once they finish their shopping. Ajiha playfully teases him, suggesting that he is actually asking her out on a date and comments that he has gotten better at it. With a smile, she agrees to his invitation. They are both seen at a ninja club booth, where Ajiha is having a blast throwing shuriken. She seems to have a natural talent for it, hitting the targets consistently. Uda, on the other hand, tries to join in using his origami shuriken, which he crafted from paper, but unfortunately misses the target completely. The members of the ninja club chuckle and gently inform him that origami shuriken can only fly if they have a specific mechanism. Despite his miss, they all share a good laugh, enjoying the friendly atmosphere. As they continue their adventure around the cultural festival, Ajiha and Uda try out various games, their excitement building with each new challenge they face. They play everything from ring toss to mini golf, enjoying each other's company and the vibrant festival atmosphere. Meanwhile, Otakogi is busy at a nearby booth, passionately explaining a game that Tsuru is currently playing to a growing audience. As he shares tips and strategies, a female classmate named Satome approaches them. She greets Otakogi warmly and remarks on how surprising it is that he is still managing to run a stall at the cultural festival, despite needing to prepare for entrance exams. Otakogi responds, explaining that, as the club president, this cultural festival is significant for him. It's likely to be the first and last one he oversees. Satome nods in agreement, sharing that she, too, is focused on her studies. She wonders aloud if she should have devoted herself to a club activity like Otakogi. Satome encourages Otakogi to attend class, despite his involvement in the cultural festival. She insists it's important to keep up with his studies, to which Otakogi replies that he will make sure to go later, promising to balance his responsibilities. As their conversation wraps up, Tsuru, who has been watching quietly, suddenly looks glum. She realizes that Otakogi's involvement in this cultural festival is significant since he is in his final year, and it dawns on her that this might be his last festival as a student. Feeling a bit overwhelmed by the thought, she decides to excuse herself and heads off to check out the class play instead, hoping to lift her spirits. Meanwhile, Uda and Ajiha are seen enjoying the aftermath of their fun day together. Ajiha playfully rates their date, giving it a score and teasing Uda to aim for an even higher score next time. She laughs and bids him farewell, leaving him with a smile as he reflects on their enjoyable time together. Just then, a public announcement crackles over the loudspeakers, grabbing everyone's attention. The announcer informs the crowd that there will soon be a performance from the Fireworks Club. Another announcement rings out, this time from the Fireworks Club, announcing that they are set to put on a fireworks show for everyone to enjoy. Hashizora, looking concerned, approaches a member of the Fireworks Club to voice her worries. She reminds them that the activity had previously been banned due to safety concerns. However, the club member confidently reassures her, explaining that the Fireworks Club has always collaborated with professionals to ensure everything is safe. He argues that Hashizora doesn't have the authority to impose a ban on any club's activities, leaving her feeling frustrated but unable to enforce her wishes. As the first fireworks burst into the night sky, Ajiha and her friends watch in awe, their faces illuminated by the colorful lights. Ajiha's excitement builds, and she instinctively looks around for Uda to share the moment with him. However, she suddenly realizes that he is not there with her. Feeling a pang of disappointment, she quickly decides to leave her friends behind, telling them she wants to aim for a high score. She races toward the clubroom, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and urgency. When she finally reaches the room, she finds Uda dozing off in a chair, completely unaware that the fireworks have already ended. Ajiha notices that Uda is still holding his game pad, suggesting that he must have been immersed in playing his game after the last customers left. As he stirs awake, he blinks in surprise when he sees Ajiha standing there. She approaches him, revealing her disappointment that the fireworks show is over. However, she quickly reassures him that they can still experience a similar moment by watching the game's ending, which features a fireworks display. Uda's face lights up with pride as Ajiha admires the effort he put into the game, realizing he incorporated fireworks into the finale based on her previous suggestion. Her heart swells with gratitude, appreciating how the game reflects his feelings and thoughts. Suddenly, a loud bang erupts outside, causing them to jump. They rush to the window, their eyes widening in awe as a massive firework blooms in the night sky, echoing the animated display from Uda's game. Suru rushes through the hallways, her heart racing as she hears that the fireworks club's show is about to begin. The excitement around her is palpable, but her thoughts are clouded with anxiety about missed opportunities. In the classroom, the students reflect on their recently completed roleplay, discussing their near mistakes. Suru feels a pang of regret as she realizes she didn't even get a single line, fearing she would have fumbled if given the chance. Meanwhile, the girls chatter eagerly about the upcoming fireworks finale, sharing a myth that claims if two people watch the finale together, they will be tied together forever. A sense of urgency washes over Tsuru as she contemplates her feelings for Otakogi. With graduation looming, she realizes this may be her last chance to experience the moment with him. She steals a glance at him as he chats with Satome and other classmates, watching the fireworks light up the sky, yet feeling a profound sense of longing for a connection that might slip away.